Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. The title of this lesson is Lift Your Hands in Prayer. Very short lesson. Once again, this lesson is entitled Lift Your Hands in Prayer. We have been taught by our enemies that we are to clasp our hands, say the sign of the cross, etc. once we pray, because it was instructed to us that someone died for us. That's what our enemies had told us. But as we go into the books of the law and the prophets, we see clearly that that's a lie. So when we pray, we are to, number one, face Jerusalem. That is the city that the Most High chose to lay his name. And we are to face that direction because that is the direction of the house. That is the place where the Most High had chose to lay his name in that city. And the Most High had chose to lay his name in that house that is no longer there. So we were instructed through the prayers of Solomon that the Most High said if we would humble ourselves in the many lands of our captivity, once we have been taken captive by our enemies, if we would just humble ourselves, turn and face that house, and lift our hands in prayer and acknowledge our faults, that he would hear us, that he would heal us. He would cause our enemies to have compassion upon us. And when us and our children return back onto his law, that he would gather us out of the many nations where he had scattered us and return us back to the land that he had promised unto our forefathers. Deuteronomy chapter 30. So let's go into the script. We're going to go through these scrolls like we normally do to validate that we are to lift our hands in prayer. We're not to clasp them. All right, now let's go to 1 Kings chapter 6. 1 Kings chapter 6, and we'll read verse 12 and 14. 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 12 reads, Concerning this house which thou art in building, if thou wilt walk in my statutes and execute my judgments and keep all my commandments to walk in them, then will I perform my word with thee, which I spake unto David thy father. This is the Most High speaking to Solomon. Verse 13, And I will dwell among the children of Israel, and will not forsake my people Israel. So Solomon built the house and finished it. So the Most High had appeared unto Solomon. He's talking to him, letting him know clearly, hey, look, if you were to walk after my laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts like your father David had, then I will do and keep all the covenants that I have made with him. Okay? And verse 13 lets you know clearly, people are thinking that they're going to die and go up in the heavens with the Most High. The Most High have always dwelt in the midst of his people here on earth, in Jerusalem, in Israel. Okay, so this is to reiterate the point that you're not dying and going to heaven. The Most High said he will dwell in the midst of us forever. He was in our camps in the wilderness. The Most High has always been in the midst of his people. You're to be mindful of that. Now let's go to 1 Kings chapter 8. Let's move over 2 chapters. 1 Kings chapter 8, and we'll read verse 22. 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 22, and verse 22 reads, And Solomon stood before the altar of Yah in the presence of all the congregation of Israel, and spread forth his hands towards heaven in this manner. Okay, so Solomon is about to make his supplication. The temple is built, the congregation is gathered, and he's standing before the entire congregation or the entire house of Israel, before all of his brethren, all 12 tribes, all 13, counting Levi, okay? And he's about to make his petition. He's about to make his supplication to the Most High. All right? So we see where Solomon had spread forth his hands as he get ready to make his petition. Now, let's move over to, we're still in the same chapter. Let's go to 1 Kings 8, and we're going to move over to verse 38. Verse 38 of the same chapter, 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 38. And verse 38 reads, what prayer and supplication soever be made by any man, or by all thy people Israel, which shall know every man the plague of his own heart, and spread forth his hands towards this house. So, regardless of one's nation, if you are the house of Israel or you are of another seed line of people, if you are to hear this word and you are being afflicted, regardless of the nation that you are in, whether you are Israelite or not, if you would find out where Jerusalem is from where you are, lift your hands in prayer and make your supplication. The Most High will hear and the Most High will heal. Okay, so this is so the stranger knows also, when you decide to turn away from wickedness and turn to the Most High's righteousness, and every person on the earth must, those who do not will be killed. So if you expect the mercy of the Most High, regardless of your nation, what you are to do, you are to face Jerusalem just as the house of Israel is commanded to, and you're to lift your hands in prayer and make your supplication. And this is for any man, irregardless of his nation or his bloodline. All right, now let's stay in the same chapter. Let's move over to verse 53 and verse 54. Same chapter, 1 Kings chapter 8, and verse 53 reads, For thou didst separate them from among all the people of the earth. This is the house of Israel. The Most High had separated his people from everyone else. That's why he had instructed the house of Israel not to marry and to intermingle with anyone else, because that would pollute the holy seed. It would pollute that bloodline. All right, verse 53, let's read that. For thou didst charge them from among all the people, for thou didst separate them from among all the people of the earth to be thine inheritance, as thou spakest by the hand of Moses thy servant, when thou broughtest our fathers out of Egypt, O Yah. Now, clearly, the Most High brought our fathers out of Egypt. I continue to reiterate that point because JC is not God as we are taught in these many nations. Okay, JC did not bring the house of Israel out of Egypt. He did not bring our fathers out of Egypt. And we're to be mindful of that. Okay, when we start to give praises unto an idol. Okay, we're not to do this. Verse 54, and it was so that when Solomon had made an end of praying all this prayer and supplication unto Yah, he rose from before the altar of Yah, from kneeling on his knees with his hands spread up to heaven. So Solomon was on his knees, his hands spread forth up to heaven before the altar of the Most High. And that is how Solomon, the Most High's anointed, one of them, okay? He is one of the Most High's anointed. Every governor that you incorrectly call king was anointed. And so are the Levites, the priest. These are many men throughout the generations. There's no such thing as no one anointed. No such thing. All the governors were anointed, and so were the priests, Levites. Excuse me, Solomon is but one of the Most High's anointed. Saul was the Most High's anointed. David was the Most High's anointed. Solomon was the Most High's anointed, and any other governor that came after them. So you understand that. All right, now let's go down to let's move over to Isaiah. We're going to go to Isaiah chapter 1, verse 15. Isaiah chapter 1, and we'll read verse 15. In Isaiah chapter 1, verse 15 reads, And when ye spread forth your hands, I will hide mine eyes from you. Yea, when ye make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood. So the Most High is speaking to the house of Israel after we have walked contrary to his law, and he continued to afflict us generation after generation. He said the more that he afflict us, the worse we become. We would not reform ourselves. We would not change. Okay, so he said at one point, he said, it's almost of no avail for me to keep killing you. I keep afflicting your children. I'm putting all these punishments upon you, and yet you will not be reformed by this. So the Most High decided that, you know what? I'm going to turn my face from the house of Israel, because the house of Israel will not obey my laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. I will send evil after them. I will scatter them to the four corners of the earth. And since they didn't want to hear me, they would not listen to my instructions, they would not walk in my statutes, laws, judgments, and precepts, then therefore, as I afflict them and they lift their hands in prayer and try to make supplication unto me and to cry unto me, I'm not going to hear them. Okay, so he's saying clearly in this verse that as you lift your hands in prayer and try to cry out unto me for me to hear you, I will not hear you. For the simple fact that when I was speaking and I sent my prophets and left this word by way of the prophets, you did not hear me then. So therefore, I don't want to hear you now that I'm afflicting you. So I hope that is made clear or made plain to those of the house of Israel, and to be made clear that when we are to make supplication to the Most High, we are to lift our hands in prayer. We're not to clasp them. You will not find anywhere from Genesis to Malachi real prophets. Okay? You will not find any of our elders in any of our many generations past that has ever made a sign of a cross any place and have ever clasped their hands together to pray. You cannot find that in our records. Okay, now let's move to the very that matter of fact that that was one. We're very close to completing this lesson. Very short lesson. Let's move to the final verse in this lesson. That will be Psalms 134. Psalms 134. All right. And Psalms 134 read, it's only 3 verses in it, so we'll read all 3 of them. All right. Behold, bless ye Yah, all ye servants of Yah, which by night stand in the house of Yah. Verse 2. Lift up your hands in the sanctuary and bless Yah. Okay. Yah, or the strong one that made heaven and earth, bless thee out of Zion. Okay. So we all know in the latter days that the law will go forth from Zion, which makes plain to anyone that's reading this book that when you are told that there is no law, the law is done away with because some idol died for you, then you should seriously ask your question, then why is the law going to go forth from Zion in the latter days? You also have to ask yourself, if all of these nations have to go up to the strong one of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the latter days, they have to go up and ask to be taught of the Most High's ways, which is his law, then that should be a clear indication to anyone that's reading this book that what the many nations are doing right now and what the house of Israel, who has been scattered into the many nations, are doing right now is incorrect. For they all must end up going up to the strong one of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and ask to be taught his law and ask to be taught his ways. So we know 2 things pertaining to that. Number 1, the law is going forth out of Zion in the latter days, which means whomever is telling you there is no law is telling you a lie. And all of these nations will have to go up to the strong one of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and ask to be taught his law, which means, yep, the law exists, the law is perpetual, and the law is in full effect. And whatever it is that they're telling you that there is no law and someone died for you, it just puts a punctuation on that fact that these people are liars. As Moshe have told us that it's going to be proven to us that our enemies are liars, and their lies are being uncovered every day. As we go into this book of remembrance and we take their idols and shred them and expose them to be liars, they will seek to change the print in this book. They've already come out with many new versions of the book of remembrance. However, it is entirely too late. Okay, the house of Israel is being awakened by the Most High. He's putting his spirit upon us, and he's causing us to make the crooked things straight. And so therefore, them going back into this book and try to rewrite it and change the words to take away its meaning and its effect will be to no avail. Okay, because the Most High has risen us up, and we will make the crooked things straight as he put his spirit upon us, as we return back unto his laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and take a hold of his law. Anyway, Israel, when you pray, you are to face Jerusalem. You're to lift your hands in prayer. You're to acknowledge your faults. And in so doing, once you have acknowledged your faults, you are not to do that thing again. Okay? Even though you are asking for forgiveness for your transgression, whatever your transgression is, you still have to pay for that. Okay? There's still punishments for that. You will not go unpunished. All right? Unlike what they tell you in these Christian churches, you can sin 1,000 times, go ask for forgiveness, and everything is going to be okay. Not so with the Most High. He is not to be provoked. All that we have to do is to look back at how he has dealt with our forefathers. You read a whole lot of killings through here, a whole lot of punishments through here. Okay, the Most High is not tolerant of nonsense. Okay, and he's certainly not tolerant of anyone who's going to walk contrary to his word. There is no democracy here. You don't have no choices. Okay, and there's a man of the Most High is not compromising in any shape, form, or fashion. You're either going to do this law or that's it. Okay, there will be no, okay, you are walk after idols, so I'm going to listen to what you have to say. Uh, That's a negative. We are to be firm and steadfast in this law, and anyone that's bringing idolatry towards us, we're to dismiss them right off the bat. There is no compromise in a man of Israel who walk in the Most High's law. Either you're going to do this law or you're not. And it's simple as that. Anyway, thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Lift your hands in prayer, Israel. Give the Most High no rest. Ensure that you're facing Jerusalem, that he may return and do the thing that he has promised in gathering us out of the many nations where he has scattered us and placing us back into the land of our forefathers. For the whole earth, all the inhabitants of the earth will see and know and recognize that we are the people of the Most High, and they will be shocked by this. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless.